Just hours after U.S. Special Forces removed Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro from power, Donald Trump was at Mar-a-Lago, glued to the live feed. If you could see the speed, the violence, it was amazing, he marveled. To Trump, this wasn't just another military operation. It was proof of American power. Swift, decisive, unmatched. But what does this mean for the world? Is this the kind of world we want? A world where military might decides everything? Where countries are ruled by force, not diplomacy? Where the idea of empire, of domination, returns to the global stage? This moment isn't just about Venezuela. It's the beginning of something much bigger. A shift that could drag us back into an era of empires. This isn't just about a single military operation. This is part of a bigger, more dangerous pattern. Trump's approach to foreign policy is clear. Swift victories, without hesitation. He craves the kind of quick, decisive wins that prove American dominance. But what he fails to recognize is the complexity of the world he's shaping. Venezuela may look like an easy victory, a country with a corrupt regime ripe for takeover, but beneath the surface lies a far deeper crisis. Venezuela is a nation in turmoil, built on decades of corruption and repression. Trump's strategy ignores this complexity. He doesn't see the layers of history and the deep fractures that define this country. He sees it as a chance to expand American influence, to solidify power. But the question remains, at what cost? Venezuela's crisis didn't begin overnight. It's the result of decades of mismanagement, corruption, and social division. The country is larger than Germany, but its economy is in shambles. The Chavista regime under Hugo Chavez and later Nicolás Maduro led Venezuela into a spiral of political and economic decay. Oil, once the backbone of the nation, became both a blessing and a curse. While the country is rich in resources, the wealth was mismanaged. Oil profits were funneled into political power games and repression, leaving the majority of Venezuelans to suffer. As the economic collapse worsened, political repression deepened, Maduro's authoritarian rule crushed opposition, and dissent was met with violence. The people of Venezuela are trapped in a broken system with no easy way out. But Trump's response is one of sheer force, ignoring the complexities that have kept the nation in crisis for so long. He offers quick solutions, but can they truly fix what has been broken for decades? The swift removal of Maduro by U.S. forces was a shockwave felt across the globe. A nation's leader ripped from power in a matter of hours. No lengthy occupation, no drawn-out battles, just a cold, calculated strike. Trump's team celebrated it as the perfect model of intervention. But the implications are far-reaching. What does this say about the U.S.'s approach to sovereignty? What happens when a powerful nation like the U.S. decides a regime is no longer acceptable? The removal of a leader may look clean from the outside, but in reality, the consequences are never so neat. The global community watched in stunned silence. For some, it was a victory, a return to the days when superpowers decided the fate of nations. For others, it was a dangerous precedent. A world where force reigns supreme, where diplomacy, negotiation, and compromise are discarded in favor of dominance. What Trump's supporters don't talk about is the hidden mechanism driving his decisions. It's not just about winning. It's about consolidating power, American power. Behind the scenes, a system of coercion and manipulation is at work. Trump's policy isn't just about winning individual battles. It's about reshaping global power dynamics. His Donroe Doctrine is just the beginning. He's using military and economic might to assert control over the hemisphere, turning it into America's backyard. But this is not just about keeping America secure. It's about securing American dominance. The U.S., with its unmatched military might, is setting the stage for a world where smaller nations are forced to align with its will or risk facing consequences. Trump's advisors, including Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, cheer him on, promoting a policy of dominance over diplomacy. But this approach overlooks the deeper question. What happens when the world starts to resist? When smaller nations, tired of being treated as pawns, decide they will no longer accept US dominance? The forces set in motion by this mindset could lead to a new kind of world order, one that is far from stable. Trump's aggressive stance is beginning to show its true cost. It's not just Venezuela that's under threat. His rhetoric is escalating tensions with other nations, from Colombia to Mexico, Greenland to Cuba. The line between diplomacy and domination is blurring. Take Greenland, for example. Trump's fixation on the island isn't just about strategic positioning in the Arctic. It's about its vast mineral resources hidden beneath the melting ice. As climate change accelerates, these resources are becoming increasingly accessible, and Trump sees an opportunity to control them. But this isn't a game of economic interest. This is about power. The more he asserts American control, the more he risks pushing countries into direct opposition. If the US continues to pursue this hardline, unilateral approach, it could provoke a backlash both within the Americas and globally. Nations already wary of Trump's ambitions are now feeling the pressure. In this environment, alliances are fragile, and trust is even more so. The world is watching, and the question remains, will this strategy of dominance lead to a new era of stability, or will it spiral into global chaos? What's often forgotten in these grand geopolitical games are the people caught in the middle. The civilians, the families, the everyday citizens of the nations Trump targets. In Venezuela, millions of people are already struggling under the weight of economic collapse and political repression. The removal of Maduro may seem like a win for American power, but for the people of Venezuela, it's another chapter of uncertainty and suffering. As the US moves in, with promises of control and order, it is the Venezuelan people who face the harsh reality. Will they be the ones to benefit from this new order, or will they become pawns in a much larger game? Trump's policies may serve the interests of American dominance, but what about the interests of those who are left behind? The everyday Venezuelans who just want peace, stability, and a future for their children? It's easy to forget them when the headlines are filled with military victories and power plays. But the true cost of these actions will always be measured in human lives. The fallout from Trump's actions doesn't stop at Venezuela's borders. When a superpower like the United States imposes its will so aggressively, the effects are felt across the globe. Trump's Donroe Doctrine may sound like a new way forward, but in reality, it's a throwback to an era where empires dictated the fate of nations. The ripple effect is already being seen in Latin America, where countries are beginning to question their alignment with the US. From Mexico to Cuba, the question is no longer whether they can trust the US, but whether they can survive under its ever-watchful eye. Trump's posture towards China and Russia adds another layer to the complexity. If the US continues to use force and economic coercion, it risks pushing these nations into closer alliances with one another. We could see the rise of new blocs, ones that directly challenge American power and influence in the region. What's at stake is not just Venezuela or Latin America, it's the balance of global power. Trump's policies are sowing the seeds for a new kind of Cold War, and the question remains, will the US emerge as the dominant power, or will the world fracture into opposing factions? The future of global geopolitics hinges on the path the US chooses. There are three potential outcomes to Trump's aggressive strategy. The optimistic scenario. In this scenario, the US maintains its dominance, keeping rival powers at bay. Latin America becomes a stable region under American influence, with economic growth that benefits both the US and its neighbors. The balance of power is tilted in favor of American interests, and the world avoids major conflicts. The middle ground. Here, the US faces growing resistance from nations around the world. While it may still hold influence in Latin America, its aggressive policies spark tensions, leading to economic and diplomatic standoffs. The global order becomes more fragmented, with alliances shifting in unpredictable ways. The US may win some battles, but at a high cost. The worst-case scenario. In this dark future, Trump's strategy leads to a breakdown of the global order. Countries in Latin America and beyond rise against US dominance, forming alliances with rivals like China and Russia. The world slips into a new Cold War, where global instability reigns and the risk of direct military confrontation becomes a reality. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Trump's course could push the world into uncharted and dangerous territory. The world is at a crossroads. Trump's aggressive foreign policy, built on the belief that force and power are the answers, may reshape the geopolitical landscape for decades to come. But the risks are immense. The US, once a leader in fostering global stability, is now flirting with the idea of empire where military might and economic dominance dictate the course of history. The world that Trump envisions is one where the strongest rule without hesitation, where diplomacy is sidelined, and alliances are based on transactional power, not shared values. But history has shown us the consequences of such a world. Empires rise, but they also fall. The US may be able to impose its will for a time, but this approach ignores the complexities of global relations. It risks creating a fractured world where smaller nations rise against the giants. The danger lies in underestimating the cost of this power. The question remains, will America's quest for dominance lead to prosperity, or will it drag the world back to an age of empires where the consequences are catastrophic?